"You're nothing but a worthless ghost at my table," my mom snapped. During the Christmas I paid for, while my brother showed off his iPhone and unwrapped a MacBook. "Then rot with that trash," I said, as I canceled the rent and froze the transfers. What happened next turned their perfect holiday into pure panic. Hey Reddit, long-time lurker, first-time poster here. This story has been absolutely eating at me for months, and I finally decided to share it because honestly, I need to get this off my chest. And maybe some of you will get a kick out of the justice that went down. Fair warning, this is going to be a long one, but I promise if you stick with me through the whole thing, the ending is absolutely worth it. I'm talking justice so sweet it could give you diabetes. Some background on me first. I'm 31 years old, work in pharmaceutical sales, and I make around $190,000 a year between base salary and commissions. I know that probably sounds like a lot to some people, but I've worked my absolute tail off to get here. Started at community college because my family couldn't afford anything else. Worked nights stocking shelves at a grocery store to pay for classes. Transferred to state school after 2 years. Graduated with a business degree while working full-time. And then spent 5 grueling years grinding through entry-level sales positions before finally landing this current job 3 years ago. I live pretty modestly despite the decent income. Drive a used Honda Civic with 180,000 miles on it. Live in a small one-bedroom apartment. Cook most of my meals at home, shop at discount stores. I'm not flashy with money at all, mainly because I grew up poor, and I know exactly what it's like to stress about every single dollar and whether you can afford groceries that week. My family situation is where this story gets complicated. And by complicated, I mean completely and utterly messed up in ways that still make my head spin. Chapter 1. The Family Financial Plan. Spoiler alert, I was the entire plan. Let me introduce you to the cast of characters who basically turned me into their personal bank account over the course of several years. First, there's Mom, Linda, 54 years old, works part-time at a nail salon when she feels like actually showing up, has never been particularly good with money management, and has this absolutely amazing ability to find emergencies that somehow always require exactly the amount of money I happen to have in my checking account at any given time. It's like she has a sixth sense for my bank balance. Then there's my sister Jessica, 26 years old, thinks she's going to be the next big social media influencer with her whopping 2,800 Instagram followers. Lives in this complete fantasy world where money appears magically whenever she needs it, and consequences for financial decisions simply don't exist. Has never held any job for more than 4 months because work apparently interferes with her content creation schedule. My cousin Ryan, 24 years old, college dropout, twice, currently exploring his career options, which is family code for unemployed for the better part of a year, and showing no signs of that changing. Lives with his mom rent-free, and has these big dreams about starting his own business someday, but absolutely zero work ethic to make any of it happen. And finally, Aunt Patricia, 47 years old, the family drama queen who has never successfully held any job longer than 8 months in her entire adult life, always has some major crisis happening in her life, and somehow always knows exactly who should be responsible for fixing it. Spoiler alert, it's always me. Now here's where this whole nightmare really begins. About 4 years ago, right around the time I started making decent money in my career, I somehow became the designated family problem solver for literally every financial issue that came up. It started small and seemingly innocent enough. Ryan needed $750 for emergency car repairs after getting into a fender bender. Jessica was short $1,100 on rent and was facing eviction with just 48 hours notice. Mom's car payment was 3 months behind, totaling $580, and she was getting increasingly threatening letters from the finance company. Each and every time, they'd come to me with these elaborate sob stories about how this was just temporary, how they'd definitely pay me back as soon as they got back on their feet, how family helps family in times of need. And like a complete and total idiot, I believed every single word of it. I thought I was being a good son, a good cousin, a good brother by stepping up when they needed help. Here's the thing nobody ever tells you about becoming the family ATM machine. Once you start giving them money, you literally cannot stop. Ever. That initial $750 for Ryan's car repairs turned into me paying his monthly insurance premiums because he couldn't afford them. Jessica's supposedly one-time rent assistance turned into me basically subsidizing her entire lifestyle month after month. Mom's car payment became my permanent responsibility without any discussion or agreement. But it wasn't just the regular monthly bills either. Oh no, that would be way too simple and straightforward. There were constant emergencies that always seemed to pop up at the worst possible times. Jessica needed $800 for new professional headshots for her modeling career. That was definitely going to take off any day now. Ryan needed $1,200 for some certification course that would absolutely guaranteed get him a good job. Spoiler, he never even finished the course. Patricia needed $600 for unexpected car repairs, then another $400 for medical bills, then $300 for this, $500 for that, on and on and on. I'm a numbers guy by nature because of my sales background, so I started keeping detailed track of everything. And over the past 3 years leading up to this story, I calculated that I've given them approximately $127,000. Let me repeat that number so it really sinks in. $127,000, $27,000. That's enough for a solid house down payment in most areas. That's a brand new luxury car. That's my entire retirement savings that I should have been building during my peak earning years. And here's the part that really gets me fired up when I think about it. Somewhere along the way during those 3 years, they completely stopped asking for help and started expecting it as their right. It wasn't, "Jake, I'm really sorry to bother you, but could you possibly help me with rent this month?" anymore. It became, "Jake will cover it," said with complete confidence and zero gratitude. They'd make plans for expensive dinners, shopping trips, weekend getaways, knowing full well that I'd be the one paying for everything. Jessica would literally tell her friends, "Don't worry about splitting the check tonight, my brother always covers me," when they went out to eat at places they couldn't afford. The gratitude that had been there initially disappeared entirely. No more. "Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate this, and I don't know what I'd do without you." It became, "Cool, thanks," delivered in the same tone you'd use to acknowledge someone handing you your mail. They started acting like my financial support was their constitutional right, rather than my personal choice to help family members. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point Setup. Last Christmas, I was feeling particularly invisible and unappreciated. My birthday had passed in October without so much as a phone call from any of them, let alone a card or small gift. Thanksgiving had been me bringing all the food to Mom's house, while everyone else showed up completely empty-handed and spent the entire meal making jokes about me being the responsible one in the family. I was getting really tired of being taken for granted, tired of feeling like nobody saw me as anything more than a walking, talking wallet that occasionally showed up to family events. So I made what I now realize was a pretty naive decision. I decided to do something really big for Christmas that would get their attention and show them how much I actually cared about them as people, beyond just paying their bills every month. I wanted to demonstrate that I saw them as more than just financial obligations. I spent weeks planning out this elaborate Christmas surprise that I was convinced would finally make them appreciate me. For Jessica, I researched and purchased a complete professional camera setup that she'd been obsessing over for months for her content creation. $2,400 worth of top-tier equipment, including multiple lenses, professional lighting gear, and editing software subscriptions. For Ryan, I decided to prepay 3 full months of his car payments to give him some breathing room to actually focus on finding work without that stress. $1,350 total. For Mom, I paid off her entire credit card debt that had been causing her massive stress and keeping her up at night. $4,200 that cleared her completely. For Patricia, I booked her that spa retreat weekend she'd been talking about for literally months. $850 for a luxury resort package. But the real surprise, the thing I was most excited about, was what I had prepared separately from all those main gifts. I had 5 envelopes prepared, each containing $6,000 in cash. That's $30,000 total that I'd been slowly saving up for months by working extra hours and cutting my own expenses. The plan was to give them their main presents first, to show I'd been listening to what they wanted, then completely blow their minds with the cash envelopes so they could actually get ahead financially for once, instead of just barely treading water month to month. I spent hours writing personal letters to go with each envelope, explaining how much each of them meant to me, and how I wanted them to have something that could really change their situations for the better. Maybe Jessica could use her money to actually invest in proper business equipment and marketing, instead of just asking me for monthly allowances. Maybe Ryan could finally get his own apartment and start building some real independence. Maybe Mom could actually relax and enjoy life a little without constantly stressing about money. I was genuinely nervous driving to Mom's house that Christmas morning, but also really excited. For once, I was going to be the one giving them something truly amazing, instead of just putting band-aids on their latest financial crisis. The bag with those cash envelopes was sitting in my passenger seat, and I kept glancing over at it thinking about how absolutely thrilled they were going to be when they realized what I'd done for them. Looking back now with clear hindsight, I realized just how completely naive I was being about the whole situation. The house was already in complete chaos when I arrived that morning. Christmas music blasting from Mom's ancient stereo system, wrapping paper covering literally every surface. Everyone talking over each other about their plans for the rest of the day. Jessica was live streaming herself opening presents for her Instagram followers, all 47 people who were actually watching her stream. Ryan was lounging on the couch, still in his pajamas at noon, like he didn't have a care in the world. Patricia was deep in conversation with Mom about some neighbor drama that had apparently been unfolding all week. They tore through their main gifts pretty quickly, and I have to admit the initial reactions were actually really good. Jessica genuinely squealed with excitement when she saw the camera equipment and immediately started unpacking everything to test it out. Ryan seemed truly surprised about the prepaid car payments and gave me what felt like a real, heartfelt hug for the first time in years. Mom actually got emotional about having her credit card debt completely cleared and kept saying, "I can't believe you actually did this for me." But here's what I started noticing as I watched them. None of them really stopped to have a meaningful conversation with me about any of it. Jessica was immediately complaining that I hadn't gotten the most expensive lens in the entire product line. Ryan was asking if I could extend the prepaid car payments to 6 months instead of just 3. Mom was already talking about how I should just set up automatic monthly payments for her credit card from now on, so she'd never have to worry about debt again. It was like they couldn't even enjoy or appreciate what they'd been given, because they were already mentally calculating what else they could potentially get out of me. The gifts weren't the end goal. They were just the starting point for bigger requests. Still, I was feeling pretty optimistic about everything at that point. I figured once I surprised them with the cash envelopes, they'd really understand how much I cared about them and how much I wanted to see them succeed. These weren't just bill payments or emergency fixes. This was real money they could use to build something better for themselves. Then, it was finally my turn to open something. Mom handed me this small, poorly wrapped box that was clearly covered in leftover wrapping paper from last year's Christmas. The tape was yellowing and peeling at the edges, and there was a visible price tag sticker that someone had tried to scratch off but hadn't quite managed to remove completely. I opened it up, and sitting inside was a $12 GameStop gift card. Used. I could immediately tell it was used because the scratch-off coating on the back was already completely gone, and there was a crumpled receipt in the box showing it had been purchased 4 months earlier with only $3.47 remaining on the balance. "I know you like those computer games," Mom said without even bothering to look up from her phone where she was scrolling through Facebook posts. A $12 used gift card with $3.47 left on it. This was my Christmas present, after I had just spent over $8,000 on gifts for them. After 3 years of covering their rent, their bills, their emergencies, their everything. But wait, because it gets so much better. Jessica looks over at me while adjusting the settings on her brand new camera and says, "Oh good, now you can finally buy yourself something nice, instead of always acting like you're completely broke." She said this while literally holding the $2,400 worth of professional equipment I had just purchased for her. I wasn't acting broke. I was broke because of them. Ryan laughed and decided to add his own commentary. "Yeah, man, maybe you can get one of those online games where you actually have friends and a social life, since you never hang out with anyone in real life anymore." Then he and Jessica started cracking up like this was the most hilarious observation anyone had ever made. Patricia, not wanting to be left out of the fun, chimed in with her own wisdom. "You know, Jake, if you actually managed your money better and didn't spend so much on unnecessary things all the time, you wouldn't always be so stressed about finances." So there I was, sitting in that living room, holding this pathetic excuse for a gift, looking around at these people who had been systematically bleeding me dry for years, and they were actually lecturing me about money management while simultaneously making fun of me for not having a social life. When exactly was I supposed to have time for friends? When was I supposed to go out and meet people and date? Every spare moment I had was either working overtime to afford their lifestyles or dealing with whatever their latest crisis happened to be. That's when I reached into my bag and pulled out those 5 carefully prepared envelopes. $30,000 in cash, sitting right there in my hands. Money I'd been saving for months by working extra hours and cutting my own expenses, planning this surprise for weeks. The room went completely quiet the instant they saw those envelopes. Jessica's eyes literally lit up, like she just spotted a pile of gold bars. "Ooh, what's that, Jake?" she asked, suddenly very interested in giving me her full attention. "I prepared something really special for everyone," I said, trying my best to keep my voice steady and calm. Mom clapped her hands together, with this huge fake smile plastered across her face. "Oh, how sweet." Jake always takes such wonderful care of his family. Patricia was already reaching out with both hands like she expected me to start handing the envelopes over right then and there without any explanation. I looked around at all their expectant faces. These people who literally saw dollar signs when they looked at me instead of a person. Who had just spent the last 10 minutes making jokes about my work ethic while spending the money I earned from that exact work ethic. Who had given me literal garbage for Christmas while expecting me to fund their dreams and cover their responsibilities. And I slowly, deliberately put those envelopes back into my bag. "What are you doing?" Jessica asked, her confusion obvious and her annoyance already starting to show. "I just realized something really important," I said, standing up from my chair. "What's wrong, honey?" Mom asked, switching into that artificially sweet voice she always uses when she wants something from me. "Nothing's wrong at all," I replied calmly. "I just figured out what everyone's real Christmas present actually is." "What do you mean by that?" Ryan asked, looking genuinely confused. "Jessica, I've paid your rent for the last 9 months straight. That's $10,800. Ryan, I've covered your car payments, insurance premiums, and given you cash for various expenses for 2 years. That's roughly $13,500. Patricia, I've paid your phone bill, utilities, and covered your various emergencies for 3 years totaling about $8,200. Mom, I just cleared your entire credit card debt, and I've been covering your medical expenses and groceries for years. You could have heard a pin drop in that room. So when you ask what your Christmas presents are," I continued, "you're looking at them. You've been getting Christmas from me every single month for years now." Jessica immediately jumped up from the couch. "Jake, come on. Don't be so dramatic about this. We appreciate everything you do for us. You know that." "Do you really?" I asked. "Because you just spent 10 minutes making fun of me for working too much to support all of you. When exactly do I have time for friends? When do I get to go out and have fun? Every dollar I make above basic survival expenses goes directly to funding your lives." Ryan started getting defensive. "Dude, nobody forced you to help us out." "You're absolutely right," I cut him off. "Nobody forced me. I chose to help because I thought you were my family, and I thought family members actually cared about each other. But you don't care about me as a person. You care about my bank account." Mom's voice immediately shifted into full manipulation mode. "Jake, sweetheart, you're really overreacting here. We're just going through a tough time right now." "It's always a tough time," I said, much louder than I had intended. "There's always some crisis, always some emergency, always some reason why I need to open my wallet and solve everyone's problems. But it's never a tough time for me, is it? It's never an emergency when I can't afford to take a vacation because I'm funding everyone else's entire lives." I started walking toward the front door. Behind me, I could hear the panic starting to set in. "Wait, Jake, let's just sit down and talk about this like adults," Jessica called out, her voice completely different now. "What about those envelopes, though?" Patricia asked, cutting straight to what she really cared about. I turned around one final time. "What about them?" "Well, how much money was actually in them?" she asked without any shame whatsoever. "Enough to completely change your lives. Enough to actually solve your problems instead of just postponing them for another month." "So, can we still—" Ryan started hopefully. "No," I said simply and firmly. "You can't. Maybe next time you'll think twice before giving someone a used gift card and making fun of them for working too hard to support your lazy lifestyles." I walked out into the cold December air and got into my car. My phone started buzzing with notifications before I had even backed out of the driveway. Text after text, call after call. I ignored every single one and drove straight to this lake house about an hour away that I'd been renting for weekend getaways. Literally my only escape from the constant financial demands and family drama. The messages that started flooding in over the next few hours were absolutely something else. "Jessica, Jake, you're being completely ridiculous about this. We were just joking around like we always do. Come back and let's talk about this like mature adults." Ryan, "Bro, seriously? You're really going to let one stupid joke ruin Christmas? That seems pretty immature even for you." Mom, "Jake, please call me back right now. I don't understand what happened back there. We love you so much, and you're being very hurtful to your family." Patricia, "This is extremely immature behavior from someone your age. Your family needs you, and you're acting like a spoiled child who didn't get his way." But as the hours went on, and I continued not responding to any of them, I could see the tone starting to shift to exactly what I'd been expecting. "Jessica, okay, fine. We're all sorry about the gift card situation. Can you at least tell us what was actually in those envelopes? We're really curious now." Mom, "Jake, I'm starting to get worried about you. Please just come back home so we can work this whole thing out together as a family. Ryan, dude, this whole situation is really messed up. We're family. Family doesn't just abandon each other over stupid stuff like this. Then Jessica again. Are you seriously going to punish your entire family over one dumb gift card? That seems pretty petty for someone who's supposed to be the mature one. Petty. I had been funding their entire existences for years, and I was the one being petty. But here's the thing. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was completely and totally done. And being done meant I started thinking clearly for the first time in years about what I had actually been doing and what my life could look like if I stopped. I pulled out my laptop and started going through my finances systematically. Every single automatic transfer, every bill I'd been paying for them, every recurring payment I'd set up for their convenience over the years. Time to see what my life actually looked like when I only paid for myself. First step, I canceled every single automatic transfer. The monthly allowances I'd been giving them, all the rent payments, car payments, insurance payments, everything. Just completely gone with a few clicks. Then I started looking at all the other things I'd been covering that they probably didn't even realize. The family phone plan that I'd been paying for. I logged into the account and switched everyone except me to the most basic plan available. Jessica had been using unlimited data for her constant social media posting and live streaming. Now she had 2 gigabytes per month total. Patricia's car insurance that I'd been covering ever since her license got suspended for multiple violations, and she couldn't afford the high-risk premiums, canceled immediately. Ryan's gym membership that he claimed was absolutely essential for his mental health, but really just gave him somewhere air-conditioned to hang out during the day instead of looking for work. Gone. All the streaming service accounts that I'd been paying for so everyone could have entertainment. Netflix, Spotify, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus. I changed every single password and downgraded everything to single-user plans. But here's the really beautiful part that I'm still proud of. I also called the credit card company and canceled all the supplementary cards I'd given them for emergencies only. Cards that they'd been using like their personal spending accounts for everything from coffee runs to clothes shopping to gas fill-ups. Then I just sat back in that peaceful lake house and waited for reality to hit them like a freight train. It took about 10 days for the full scope and impact of what I'd done to become crystal clear to them. The first signs were relatively small. Ryan texting that his phone data wasn't working properly, Jessica complaining that Netflix was suddenly asking for payment information. But the real panic started setting in hard when all their bills came due in January, and they realized what their lives actually cost. See, here's what I hadn't fully explained to them over the years, and what they'd never bothered to ask about or try to understand. When I'd been helping them with their expenses, I hadn't just been giving them money to pay their own bills. I had completely taken over paying the bills directly. So they had absolutely no idea what they actually owed each month, when payments were due, or how much their lifestyles actually cost to maintain. Ryan's monthly expenses that I'd been covering without him even thinking about it. Car payment, $420. High-risk insurance because of his driving record, $340. Phone bill, $110. Gym membership, $45. Plus random cash I'd give him for gas and food, $300. Total, $1,215 per month that he'd never had to budget for or even consider. Jessica's reality check was even more brutal. Rent for her trendy downtown apartment, $1,350. Car payment, $385. Phone, insurance, utilities, groceries, and the lifestyle expenses she'd gotten accustomed to. She was looking at roughly $2,400 per month in basic expenses just to maintain her current situation. Her actual income from her influencer career was maybe $400 per month during her absolute best months. Patricia was facing the worst situation of all. I'd been covering her rent, $1,100, car payment, $295, insurance, phone, utilities, and giving her regular cash for emergencies. She owed approximately $2,000 per month just for basics and was working maybe 20 hours per week at a retail job, making minimum wage, bringing home roughly $600 per month. The phone calls started coming in fast and increasingly frantic. Jessica called first, and I could hear the panic in her voice. Jake, there's been some kind of major mistake with my rent payment. My landlord called and said the automatic payment was canceled, and now I owe this month plus late fees, plus next month's rent in advance. Can you please call them and fix whatever technical error happened? It's not a mistake, I told her very calmly. What do you mean it's not a mistake? Of course it's a mistake. I mean, I'm not paying your rent anymore. I'm not paying any of your bills, actually. Long pause. Jake, that's not funny at all. I literally cannot afford my rent without your help. Then you should probably figure something out pretty quickly. Figure out what exactly. I don't have $1,350. Plus the late fees, it's almost $1,500 now. Sounds like you need to get a real job with a real paycheck. A real job? Jake, I'm building my personal brand. This is my career path. Jessica, you have 2,800 followers and you make $400 a month on a good month. That's not a career. That's an expensive hobby. She hung up on me. Ryan called next, sounding completely defeated. Dude, my car got repossessed yesterday. They said the payment was over a month overdue. I thought you were handling all that stuff? I was handling it. Now I'm not handling it anymore. What does that even mean? You can't just stop paying my car payment without telling me. I can, and I did. Watch this. I hung up on him. Mom called crying, Jake, I don't understand what's happening here. Patricia says you cut off her car insurance and Jessica is saying you won't pay her rent anymore. Are you having some kind of mental breakdown? I'm not having any kind of breakdown, Mom. I'm just not paying for everyone else's lives anymore. But Jake, they can't afford their bills without your help. That sounds like a problem they're going to need to solve themselves. You can't just abandon your family like this. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not enabling their irresponsible behavior anymore. There's a huge difference. This isn't like you at all, honey. You've always been so generous and caring with your family. Yeah, and look where that got me. A used gift card for Christmas, and jokes about not having friends. Over the next 6 weeks, I got to watch their entire house of cards come tumbling down in the most spectacular fashion, and I have to admit, it was absolutely glorious to witness. Jessica couldn't make her January rent payment and received an official eviction notice with a court date. She desperately tried to borrow money from friends, but apparently none of her Instagram followers were particularly interested in funding her lifestyle when push came to shove. She had to completely swallow her pride and move back into her childhood bedroom at Mom's house, cramming all her adult possessions into the same room she decorated with boy band posters in high school. But here's the really satisfying part that made me smile every time I thought about it. Without her own apartment for taking photos and creating content, and without unlimited data for constant posting and live streaming, her already struggling social media presence completely tanked. Her follower count started dropping daily. The few small brands that had been occasionally working with her stopped responding to her emails entirely. Her monthly income went from a pathetic $400 to basically zero. Ryan's situation was even more dramatic and entertaining to watch unfold. After his car got repossessed, he was suddenly stuck taking city buses and begging for rides from anyone who would help him. Suddenly, all those job interviews he'd claimed he couldn't get to because of transportation issues became his problem to solve with public transit and his own 2 feet. It was absolutely amazing how quickly he found motivation to actually work when his mom started charging him rent and threatening to kick him out of her house. He ended up taking a job at a shipping company, loading trucks starting at 5 a.m. for $16 per hour. The exact same guy who used to tell me he couldn't possibly take jobs that were beneath his education level was suddenly incredibly grateful for any work he could get that paid actual money. Patricia's downfall was the most spectacular of them all. Without car insurance, she couldn't legally drive anywhere. Without a car, she couldn't get to her part-time retail job across town. She got fired for too many unexcused absences and couldn't find anything else within walking distance of Mom's house. She ended up having to move out of her apartment entirely and set up camp on Mom's living room couch, a 47-year-old woman sleeping in a living room because she'd never learned to support herself like an actual adult. But the real kicker, the thing that brought me the most satisfaction, was watching Mom deal with suddenly having 3 additional adults completely dependent on her income and resources. She'd always acted like supporting them financially was no big deal when I was the one doing all the heavy lifting, but when she had to carry that weight herself, reality hit faster than a speeding truck. Her part-time nail salon income couldn't even come close to supporting 4 adults. The grocery bills alone were absolutely killing her budget. The utility costs skyrocketed with everyone home all day using electricity and water. She was drowning financially, and for the first time in years, she finally understood exactly what kind of burden I'd been carrying. That's when the real begging started. And this is where the story gets really good. The first truly desperate call came from Mom about 2 months after Christmas. Jake, please, I'm literally begging you to reconsider this whole situation. I cannot support all of them by myself. Patricia is eating me out of house and home. Jessica cries about money problems every single day. And Ryan is barely making enough at his new job to help with anything around here. I'm seriously looking at losing the house. Mom, you told me I was being immature and hurtful. You said I was abandoning my family. I was wrong, okay? I was so completely wrong about everything. I never fully realized how much financial burden you were carrying for all of us. Please, I'm literally about to lose everything I own. Maybe you should have thought about that before you let them treat me like garbage for years while I paid for their lives. Jessica's call was pure, undiluted desperation. Jake, I'm really sorry about everything that happened at Christmas. I really am. I was being horrible, and I can see that now. But I'm having full-blown panic attacks about money constantly. I've never had to worry about finances before, and I don't know how to handle this kind of stress. Welcome to exactly how I felt every single day for 3 years straight. I've lost 15 pounds because I can't afford to buy groceries. I'm literally eating rice and beans for every meal. Maybe you'll finally get those sharp cheekbones you always wanted for your Instagram selfies. That's not funny, Jake. I'm actually really struggling here. So was I for years. The difference is nobody cared when it was me struggling. Ryan's call was probably the most pathetic of them all. Jake, man, I finally get it now. I really get it. I had absolutely no idea how hard you were working or how much you were sacrificing for all of us. This shipping job is completely killing me, and I barely make enough to cover my most basic expenses. I can't even think about dating anyone because I'm so broke all the time. I'm 24 years old and I live like I'm homeless. Now you know exactly how I felt, except I was also supporting 4 other people while feeling that way. I swear I'll pay you back for everything, every single cent. Once I get on my feet financially, I'll pay back every dollar with interest. Ryan, you couldn't pay me back when you had 0 expenses, and I was covering everything. What makes you think you can pay me back now when you actually have real bills to worry about? But the absolute most satisfying call of them all came from Patricia about 3 months into their financial collapse. Jake, I need to admit that I made a terrible mistake. I can see that clearly now. I'm 47 years old, and I'm sleeping on your mother's couch because I never learned to be financially responsible or independent. I always just figured someone would bail me out whenever I got into trouble, and that someone was usually you. I know I don't deserve any help after how I treated you, but I'm absolutely desperate here. I'll do anything you want. Clean your apartment, do your grocery shopping, run errands, whatever you need. Please just help me get back on my feet one more time. Patricia, do you remember what you told me at Christmas? You said I should manage my money better and stop spending on unnecessary things. I was completely and totally wrong. I didn't understand anything about your situation. Well, here's your perfect chance to practice exactly what you preached. Manage your money better. Stop spending on unnecessary things. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps like you're always telling other people to do. Jake, please. I'm literally begging you. I'll never ask for anything ever again. You said that exact same thing the last 4 times I bailed you out of financial trouble. The answer is no. The desperate calls kept coming for months and months, each one more pathetic than the last. They tried every guilt trip in the book about family loyalty. They tried elaborate apologies and promises to completely change their behavior. They tried bargaining, offering to pay me back with interest, to work for me for free, to do whatever I wanted. Jessica even offered to promote my pharmaceutical sales business on her Instagram account. What followers? And give me valuable exposure in exchange for financial help. But here's the thing that really sealed the deal for me and made me realize I was making the right choice. Through every single one of these increasingly desperate phone calls, not one of them ever acknowledged the real underlying problem. Not one of them said, "We treated you terribly as a person, and we're genuinely sorry for taking advantage of your kindness and generosity." It was always about their current crisis, their immediate financial needs, their problems that needed solving. Even when they were literally begging me for help, they still saw me as a solution to their problems, rather than a human being they had hurt and taken advantage of.